Do you trust AI models like let's say ChatGPT?
Not 100% talking about human connection.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, people still prefer to talk to humans.
Okay.
The comfort and connection and trust and judgment that in person gives hasn't yet been replaced here in Nepal so far.
AI is just one more tool. For me, for teachers, for parents, one of the things that really helps in teaching learning process is tracking, right?
When deep research came, it pretty much took away jobs of some researchers very easily, right?
Can you create something that can actually communicate, that can actually influence the consumer?
If you're not using the new tools, then you'll be left out. Tools are supposed to make things easier, right? Or you should learn how things work.
We definitely need humans, but then how many is the question.
The first thing is research. You need to be able to go deep into something and then contextualize it.
What does the art look like?
I think I think
We're going into a loophole.
If Anup had to do a marketing campaign for, let's say, Happy Minds,
Okay.
how would you go about it?
Go for it.
Oh my god.
Do you think as humans we are very bad communicators?
we are lazy communicators.
For countries like ours and other countries like Nepal, what do you think are the challenges and opportunities?
The biggest problem, I guess, is making teachers use these technologies.
You cannot outsource your data outside and get the intelligence, right? You have to be producing intelligence within.
How do we design the policies and the environment that favors development and use of AI technologies for better within the country itself, so that we do not lose out?
At least people are aware that you can talk to ChatGPT.
I think there are a few problems in Nepal that really bothers me, and I would like to solve that.
Do you think that mindset of localization is a bit more overpowered? Thank you guys for doing this. One of the primary reasons why I'm doing this is that we go interact with a lot of businesses right now and then train people building technology in AI. When we are doing that, we see that the adoption of AI is very murky right now. Everyone is dabbling with so many different kinds of things. And then I started feeling that it makes a lot of sense for the community to come together, share practices, and see how we are adapting. Because in this post-AI world, AI is already here. It is impacting our business. Maybe some part of it has reached us already or not reached us already. But then before that, there is an AI angle, there is a human angle. There's so many different kinds of things. So we'll just start by where you are coming from, what you are building, and what are the kind of things that you're doing right now, and then we'll slowly move towards the other things. So maybe Anup, you want to start?
Okay. So hi everyone. My name is Anup. I run a media production company called VFinders. Basically, we are in a service line. We help a lot of B2B brands come up with their own content strategy. We do a lot of production and followed by the distribution. Parallelly, I also host a podcast.
Yeah.
That's Doers, where we bring a lot of good people in Nepal who are doing amazing stuff.
Yeah.
To basically drill down on the idea that you can do a lot of things from here in Nepal itself. Because right now, I think I feel there's some form of toxicity in Nepal, that it's a failed state, which it is not. So the whole podcast that I host is around highlighting the people who are doing amazing stuff in Nepal. So yeah, and parallelly, we also run a wedding agency. So we connect a lot of photographers with to-be brides and to-be grooms. So yeah, that's about me.
And what is exciting you about AI right now?
Well, it's a very tricky time to be in, because I think our whole business is content creation, content generation, and I think this phase of AI is all about generating content, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at all of these applications that is coming up, that is creating content, and I think right now, I think instead of doubting AI, the ideal thing is to leverage it as much as possible. So currently, I think it's everybody's favorite. ChatGPT is something we all use in our team.
Yeah.
And parallelly, we also use a couple of other platforms like Evento, Motion Array, which in themselves are now using AI to provide these services.
Okay.
So, yeah, every day it's a day when we think, how can we leverage AI more to create better content?
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, it's a very murky time to have one particular narrative.
Yeah. Do you think we can build a lot from Nepal right now?
100%, 100%. I think in the world of AI, I think story is going to be more powerful, and as a country, we have this amazing story that can be leveraged. So
Yeah.
definitely yes.
Okay. Okay. And I think we'll come back to it. But then moving to Shreya, and what are you doing? What you're building? I think the last couple of years for you has just been so amazing in terms of what you're doing in terms of your work. So maybe what is happening over there, and then what's been your story with AI, and then just generally. So maybe we can
Okay.
start there.
So I run a mental health and well-being platform called Happy Minds. Initially, we just started off as an online organization.
Yeah.
Thought just like maybe telecounseling would be suffice, but we realized that there isn't enough mental health awareness.
Yeah.
So we slowly diverted and invested equally into building digital awareness at the same time. And then we realized that no matter how tech savvy you get,
Yeah.
the consumers, especially here in Nepal, aren't ready to be accepting such advanced technology.
Okay.
Meaning, I was drawn back to the traditional form of therapy
Okay.
in person. So we slowly established an in person therapy
Okay.
organization platform, more like.
Yeah.
So currently, we serve in person and online therapy services
Okay.
to Nepali individuals and communities across 7 provinces and almost 29 nations by now.
Okay. Okay.
But we also encourage corporate houses to invest in workplace mental health. So there's like a B2C and B2B aspect.
Okay.
Initially, when I had the first website of Happy Minds, we
Yeah.
had our own back-end system with like where any clients could invest their homework, track what is it that the therapists are recommending,
Okay.
track the feedbacks of the therapist, use our own video conferencing platform. But we also realized that Nepal wasn't ready
Yeah.
to be using such advanced platform.
Okay.
So we had to scrap it.
Yeah.
And we went like full on manual traditional
Yeah.
method. So it's been like very tricky, like we're still figuring out.
Yeah.
But ever since the rise of AI has been there, it's been very easy for us because therapists are short staffed, not just in Happy Minds, not just in Nepal, but globally.
Yeah.
So in the places where we haven't been able to support people, AI therapists and platforms like ChatGPT has been like super helpful.
There's something really interesting that you say that Nepal is not really ready for technology. When ChatGPT came in a more mainstream format, Nepal was a very high adopter of that technology in the beginning. So, what do you think the problem is? The problem is more relatability to the technology, or people not understanding it, or the technology not being right from a socio-cultural angle. Like, why do you think you had to go back to traditional way of mental
I think
health?
it's a lot to do with cultural adaptation as well,
Okay.
a form of trust and connection. Nepal is like super cultural driven,
Yeah.
community based place where people are prefer to connect more with from person to person.
Yeah.
So it was rather more like a natural bonding that they preferred with in person.
Okay.
But again, we are talking about only a certain segment of people who are like particularly based in Nepal, in certain countries,
Yeah.
come from certain economic background or
Yeah.
educational level who prefer that over AI therapists.
Do you see that changing right now
Yeah.
with like ChatGPT kind of tools, like
Yeah,
people using
100%.
that for more?
I mean,
mental-
I go for in-person therapy, but I also rely heavily for ChatGPT to
Okay.
give me emotional support. So
Okay.
I do see the transition not only in me, but also people around me, including the therapists themselves.
Okay, wow. And do you trust AI models like let's say ChatGPT? Do you trust it enough?
I mean, not 100%, but a lot of the times, yes, I do.
But then it could also be very tricky, no, for a business that is based on therapy, and then for mental health services to organizations and everything. When you start moving to use these kind of models yourself, do you see it impacting your business already, or like the perception basically? Like how does someone perceive Happy Minds right now if I can talk to ChatGPT?
I think again coming back to talking about human connection,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, people still prefer to talk to humans.
Okay.
We haven't had any records of client dropping out of therapy because they found ChatGPT comfort. It's rather about imagine if I'm having a panic attack and I'm writing it to ChatGPT, I'm having panic attack, and
Yeah.
it tells me do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 breathing. Me reading it versus a therapist sitting next to me and they're like, I'm sitting with you, breathe with me, and I'm just mirroring their breath.
Yeah.
The comfort and connection and trust and judgment that in person gives hasn't yet been replaced here in Nepal so far.
Okay.
And I hope it doesn't go that way.
No, like in technology, we are seeing that like if you're not above average developer or an engineer and everything, that's where we are already starting to see some AI systems already starting to replace people in that sense. Do you see that kind of benchmarking for therapists as well, especially with ChatGPT, like kind of system getting better and better by the day, and then the therapist, the level of therapist, like does a therapist need to be an exceptional therapist to have business maybe a years down the line? Do you see it that way?
I can't give you a definite answer just yet. At the end of the day, humans are bound to make human errors, which also means that you will be welcoming some misdiagnosis and lack of sufficient emotional support along the way.
Yeah.
But talking to an AI replacing, I rather see it as an AI complementing the therapist. Just hold on to this comfort that ChatGPT gives you,
Yeah.
that you will eventually get from a therapist. So
Yeah.
maybe it might be lagging the help seeking support with a therapist
Okay.
at the moment.
Okay, this is very interesting, and then so many different kinds of reflections I'm having on a personal level as well. Just coming to Nirdesh with that, because you ran a educational startup, you're working on something that is probably educational or on around those lines. How did you go about building what you built, and then what has been your relation with AI? So maybe you can start there.
Yeah. I found we founded with around 2016, late 2016. So our product is about how do we make it easier for schools to digitize everything so that they spend most of their resources teaching students rather than on daily operations management and everything. So that's Veda. It's an MIS to be, it's a MIS. So we always thought about a lot of tools we could build if we had this access before 10 years, right? So the access, the APIs that we have. Because I think AI is just one more tool
Yeah.
that makes things easier. For me, one of the things for me, for teachers, for parents, one of the things that really helps in teaching learning process is tracking, right? So with AI, we can track,
Yeah.
we can find the signals better than humans, and we can find it earlier so that interventions can be done earlier. Might be with grids, might be with learning patterns, and all those things, right? So I think that is one of the strengths that AI has. But then there are a lot of other things now with the AI that becomes easier in education. One is grading and everything. What I see is in the future, not that far into the future, very soon, grading and all these things would make sense for AI, and teacher would be more of a orchestrator. Like they would all be observing and looking at patterns and everything and making learning more superficially. They'll oversee everything, but then a lot of things would be done by AI because that is what AI is good at, right? So one thing that I'm really interested in and that we have been working in is personalized learning for
Yeah.
students.
Yeah.
And this is very important, right? So I think AI is a tool that can bring personalizations in everything, right?
Yeah.
So in health,
Yeah.
in education, they can be our personal assistant that knows a lot of things about us, right? They can be personal friend that can actually answer you in the future, right? So with your personal things. But the earliest I see is even before doctors. I think teachers having a personal teacher is something that we'll be looking at. Will not be replacing teachers, right? But we'll be making it easier for teachers to track everything that's going on with the students.
Yeah.
But if we talk about the students, then I think personalized education is what we all need, right?
Yeah.
Schools call it differentiated learning, but it's more than that, right? So every student has their own learning style.
Yeah.
Every student has their own learning pace, and teachers cannot track this for 20, 40, 60, 80 students. They cannot do it.
Yeah.
So if we can do it at scale,
Yeah.
then the learning would be better. But the other thing is, if we can have something that actually looks at everything that we are doing and actually changes things according to your need,
Yeah.
not having exams like in 3 months, 6 months. The only way we actually track students' performance are those exams in 3, 6, 8, 12 months, right? So, and it's really late for the people who have learning gaps to catch up. I think that is where I see AI making a lot of changes in education. But if you look from developer standpoint, from startup standpoint, we are looking at technologies that make programming, the cost of programming go like 10, 20x lower. We are seeing it right now. And the time even more, right? So there are companies that are making 20, 60, $80 million. All right. They have 20, 40, 50 people right now, the new startups. What we are seeing is tools like, all the programming tools and all those tools are making it really easy for anyone to build products and into the market. So 80, 90% of the job will be done by AI. You should at least know 10% of the programming things to make it work. So in both sides, so building a product, AI is making AI is making a lot of changes. In education, I think AI will change how we learn, how we look at education itself. I'm not saying it after 10, 15 years. I'm saying it within 2, 3, 5 years. That's the timeline I see.
Yeah. So and this is very interesting that you see, and then but when you see the current educational infrastructure, right? There are schools, there are colleges, and everything, and then with the level of personalization that AI can bring, there are two things, right? One is that how do you understand that someone knows something, right? The other is if the current system of education is so redundant, do you see this system in itself being super defunct very, very fast, and then the general structure not being able to adapt very quickly? Any thoughts you have on that?
So I think the general structure actually is not that adaptable for students, right? I don't see it changing because there has been a lot of, this is not just AI. There has been a lot of technological revolution, and a lot of changes in the last 100 years. But the way we study, more so in emerging nations, has remained the same. I think a lot of things has to do with evaluation. Until and unless the process of the way of evaluation changes, the students keep on learning in the same way. But what I'm saying is, even if it remains same, students have to know what they are learning, right? So they have. So it's not about getting 100 marks, but if they are learning only 40%, they have to understand the 40%, not just for exams, right? So that's what I'm talking about. So yeah. I think that's where so that is the point that AI will change, right? So learning, AI is really good at finding patterns. The algorithm is all about patterns. And, if the AI can actually understand how I learn, at what time I learn, and what are the contents that are difficult for me, then I think it will make it really easy for me to learn in the way I want to, right? So, for example, there's this example I always give, right? So, we often say some students in class they cannot do good because it's not that they don't want to learn, right? Someone is teaching at level 0. Let's say someone is teaching topic A. A lot of students understand it. One person in the classroom doesn't. Now, because he doesn't know the fundamentals itself. Now he's an introvert. He doesn't know how to. He doesn't want to ask questions, and he starts lagging from there. So no one is looking at the learning gap that he has, right? The AI can. But then, if there's an AI system where he can go and ask questions, then it will go back to fundamentals because for AI is not even level 0. The AI can take it to level -1, -2, and they can actually ask a lot of questions without being judged. You cannot. These children fear to ask questions in class. And there was this experiment I forgot. While we are working with a lot of research, we were looking at a lot of research right now. One research I think was based around this, right? So this was of Harvard. I think it was in Harvard Gazette or something. So the learning outcomes of students goes 2x. By implementing AI. But then there's another research that that is a slight that comes up with slightly different results. So they were not just looking at the personalization, but they were looking at how students were interacting with the system. They were asking more questions first, and they were revising the lessons more often. So that is how I think the learning will change.
So now this is very interesting what all of you shared, and the question that pops up in my head is that. So okay, in mental health, there is something that is happening with technology and therapy, and then the entire workflow. The same with teaching. The same with content. If we have to just be very objective and then see who is going to be relevant moving forward, what do you think? Like if you have to pinpoint some skills or competencies of people that you think these are the kind of people in your work area, those will be very relevant. How would you answer that question? Anyone can go.
Yeah, I think in programming itself, if you see, right, I think product managers would still be relevant
Yeah.
for some time. If I look at teaching, learning, teachers would always be relevant, right? So the role of teachers has always been changing. Now, uh, they are not as hands-on right now. If you, in the past they were really hands-on, right? Now they are kind of facilitators.
Yeah.
Now they will be not that hands-on, but they will be looking at a lot of new things. AI is taking the exams, AI is evaluating, AI is grading, and they are doing all these things. Now teachers can actually focus on things like ethics,
Yeah.
critical thinking. How can they make critical thinking better for students? So they can think at those bigger things,
Yeah.
right? So
So,
teachers,
but do you think the broader spectrum of teachers would be competent enough? Not trying to put anything on anyone, but just trying to see like the average teaching faculty of, let's say, for example, the entire world, right? Do you think that is adaptive enough, or do you think there are going to be different challenges for the teachers to be at that level? Right? Say, if a teaching learning process has trained someone to not think critically for such a long time, the transition for a teacher to be able to facilitate critical thinking for a really long time, do you think that's going to be a challenge?
I think, I think the beauty or the dark side of technology is the people who cannot keep up, cannot keep learning, they'll be left out. And I think a lot of teachers would really struggle more so in emerging side to keep up with the pace and to actually internalize that AI is going to change a lot of things. Because I had this conversation with few doctors
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
and they do not believe that AI will change how doctors, how we perceive doctors. But I really think I've seen it,
No,
and I
that's
really
already
feel,
changing.
yeah, that's already changing. So it's not you. The people who actually cannot look at how things are changing and
Yeah.
cannot add up, they'll be left out. That's I think a trend that.
But I think that, like, we have never probably have had a mass that
Yeah.
is so big.
Yeah.
I think like maybe like with technological advancement, I think AI is probably going to leave people, so many people who will probably not be able to adapt. Probably earlier to say, but then as we go and interact with more people, that's what we've been also noticing. Do you see the same with
Yeah.
therapies?
A lot of the times when we work closely with the corporate houses, the workforces who's been there for like 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
They've been structured and designed to work in a certain way, and they've gotten used to it, habituated, coming closer to this to their 40s and 50s, and now all of a sudden there is an integration of tech and AI,
Yeah.
and out of the blue now you have to start learning.
Yeah.
And they also know that if they are unable to learn and adapt,
Yeah.
they will be fired and replaced. So this is where the anxiety of tech replacing
Yeah.
human is influxing a lot,
Yeah.
especially in the older generation as well.
Yeah.
So I think it also gives you a gentle push
Yeah.
to be open to like newer things, what's happening around the world.
Yeah.
How can you simplify your own work so that you can perform better and look beyond just your general task and such.
Yeah.
But I also see how certain age group and certain demographics of people also have a lot of like fear and anxiety, and as we enter into this era.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've noticed very clearly is that, let's say, for example, you use ChatGPT or use any other model, and you do some work. You still need to confirm it, and you still need to put your human touch, and then you still need to push that forward. So when I see a lot of people seeing that part and saying that, okay, I still have some relevance, I still need to confirm the last bit. But I think what people are not realizing is that the way the pace in which the technology is getting better, it will probably be a point where suddenly a lot of things will change. Just like, let's say, when deep research came, it pretty much took away jobs of some researchers very easily, right? For the work for which you probably need a couple of weeks time, probably gets done in a matter of not even hours, like minutes, right? So when you look at content, as in, like, what do you think are going to be the kind of people who are going to be relevant from where you stand right now?
At times I ask myself, will I be relevant or not? With the things that I see in the world, like every other day there is new application coming over, and we don't know what tomorrow,
Yeah.
what invention we'll be seeing tomorrow. But then coming back to your question, I think, like when ChatGPT became this popular, we felt that writers would not be relevant.
Yeah.
But I think writers are more relevant than now than in the past.
Everyone?
Well, not the mediocre one, and I think that applies to almost every other
Every
industry,
profession,
every other. For example, if you cannot, like, even when we are talking, you keep mentioning about the delta, right?
Yeah.
So I think the mediocres in almost every industry will lose their relevancy, but people who are smart enough to leverage these tools to produce works that consumers are willing to accept, I think that's where the relevancy will shine. Because at the end of the day, it's the people who are buying things,
Yeah.
right? For example, if you're writing a copy for a product, let's say if you're writing a copy for a shampoo, somebody is buying that shampoo,
Yeah.
somebody is buying that Coke, somebody is buying that motorbike.
Yeah.
So, can you create content influencing enough for the end person to actually consume it, make a decision and buy? I think
Yeah.
that's where the power is it with the consumers.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. And can you create something that can actually communicate, that can actually influence the consumer?
Yeah.
I think if we can see from that lens, I think the question will change.
Something like as you were speaking, something that came to my mind is that so if mediocre talent in any industry will start losing its relevancy, and I'm watching this, I'm listening to this, how do I know that I'm mediocre? How do you think I can self-assess myself to be mediocre in my job?
I think it's very tough, no, to actually reflect upon yourself and then realize, okay, I'm mediocre at my own thing.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe you have to judge with the work that you are getting every year. If it is decreasing, you are mediocre. If it is increasing, you are relevant in the market.
Yeah.
I think you could use a prompt, good prompt with ChatGPT to judge
Am I
yourself.
How do I
mediocre?
know if I'm a mediocre?
I think that's very different for mental health care, however,
okay.
because as we're evolving, there are more and more therapists who struggle to exactly understand, comprehend, and support the clients. Say previously, we didn't have pride inclusive therapist,
Okay.
and now as more and more people feel comfortable to come in front and talk about their challenges, it pushes the therapist to now to learn about inclusivity. What does
Okay.
pride community mean? Learn about sex, gender, pronouns. What do they mean when they say having relationship issues
Yeah.
within for a gay couple, say?
Yeah.
So at any point, if you feel that you're struggling, that's a benchmark for you to understand this is your mediocre service. You need to do more research, invest more, so that you are relevant to be able to serve to your client.
Yeah.
So at least on this side of the world, it's different, where maybe management doesn't have to exactly intervene just yet. It's the client that keeps you on your toes.
And also maybe just reflecting upon, maybe now the new definition of mediocre would be if you're leveraging technology or not.
Yeah.
If you're not leveraging a technology, maybe you're mediocre.
I think that's a really valid point. If you're not using the current tools, then you will be left out. For example, if you are not using let's say you are not using the latest technology to plow the field. If you are still using the cows and buffaloes, you will actually, however good farmer you cannot compete with the ones that have tools, right? So people actually fear to use new tools. They think using old tools is an art.
Yeah.
In some case that might be the truth, but 95% of the case that is not. If you're not using the new tools, then you'll be left out. Tools are supposed to make things easier, right? So if you have that skill, then you can, and you have also got the tools, then you'll be always ahead of the curve.
So let's come back to learning, and then like maybe you have some more insights on how we are learning better, or like compared to before. So it is a problem for everyone, right? Let's say, for example, technology, as you had mentioning, there's a new model coming from US, China, almost every other week, every other month. How do we stay abreast with the new technology that is coming? How do we know? Like, what is your process of getting to know the new technology?
So it's, I think it's more LinkedIn. So I get updates from LinkedIn, and I try new technology. Yesterday I was talking to my co-founder how many subscriptions I have. So I don't know. I'm getting used to getting subscriptions. So to know new technology, it's not that you have to use every technology. The technology that you are going to use depends on the use case, right?
Yeah.
So Recently, I was using ChatGPT 4,
Yeah.
and then Kling. I forgot the name, the Chinese video maker.
DeepSeek.
Yeah.
Kling AI, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Kling
to
AI.
make videos, right? So that's there. I trust ChatGPT more than DeepSeek because I've tried it and the output is generally better. It also needs less, even lesser than 2.5 because you can look at the temperature. When you are, things technically, when you use it and when you go through the process
Yeah.
and then compare the results, you know which one is better for what.
Yeah.
You have to use it.
Yeah.
You cannot just say, I'll be using this one only for this one only for this.
Yeah.
There's a use case, you try 2 or 3 tools, you look at the output. One might fit one use case, the other might fit the other.
Yeah.
For example, cloud might be better for programming, right? So that's how I look at things.
So yeah.
I would like to add something
Yeah.
on this. So recently, I think I've started to feel that ChatGPT Pro give you an answer based on the context. I mean, like
Yeah.
at one given point of time, a friend of mine gave me a prompt that roast me based on my all chat history. Then he started giving me all the
Yeah.
all. So I think now I feel that more than ever, I am going to stick to ChatGPT because it has the context of last 1 year of what I talk about, what are my dilemmas, what are my problems, what are the things, what the perspective that I look for. So I don't know. Maybe in a long run, how do I say it? Because we have been using Word document for a while now, right? Because I think since class 5 or 6 we have been getting accustomed to Windows, so
Yeah.
it's the Word file. So I think it's on a similar notion. For me, it's ChatGPT Pro.
Yeah.
Because do I really want to give every other context that I've been giving since last 1 year to new platform? Maybe not.
Yeah.
I think just adding on to that as well, a lot of the times we are, I mean, not a lot of people, but we do get concerned about what about my privacy.
Yeah.
But at some point, me feeding in so much data into ChatGPT gives me so much privilege almost to not do the labor things. There's a different account for me and there's a different account for the company.
Yeah.
And I input as much as I can wherever needed. Because now filling in forms, making results and reports and all of it has become much easier because I don't have to keep giving background context. So in that way as well, it's been like super efficient and helpful as well, giving the background data.
Like Anup said, privacy versus
Privilege.
privilege, right?
Privilege. Yeah.
Just think about this. We talk about OpenAI and ChatGPT because now we can look at what it is consuming, right? Because it throws out information and we can see what it is consuming. But just look at Google. It has all my maps history wherever I travel.
Yeah.
It has all my photos, all the
Emails.
people,
All the
all the
documents,
people that I
Everything.
Basically,
my docs,
Everything.
my spreadsheet, my literally find my all the finances that I put in this spreadsheet, my company's finances, all the emails that I interact send to my clients.
Yeah.
I think the whole technology is based on data, right? So
Yeah.
that's what they are consuming.
Yeah.
It's on us to decide we want to be at the edge or we just want to be one of the people who lives in the mountains.
mountains,
So that's
also an option.
Yeah, that's also a good. That's also a very good option.
I think like because
you
you're
might not want to check in on mountain.
yeah. There's something you were mentioning about talent and everything. And then right now, when we talk to a lot of people, one thing that I've seen with lot of non-technical people is that, okay, now AI is here. Now I need to understand programming. Now I need to understand how to code. Now I need to understand what is Python, right? Those kind of conversations I hear a lot, right? So when you are coming from a technical background, building a technology company, do you think it is the right thing to do for anyone today who is from a totally non-technical background to start learning programming?
I might be biased, but I really think everybody should know how to program. It's like the science, right? How do you train a machine to do this?
But then how does it change in
But then
today's context?
I'm not saying you should be a developer. You should learn how things work. But I think for people who are thinking about going into programming just because of AI, they are doing the wrong thing. I think they can actually learn prompt engineering, how to prompt, not prompt engineering even, how to better prompt the system. And the tools that can actually give them is by just prompting, right? Cursor, there is Replicate. You can actually build products within 20 minutes using this kind of products, right? If you really know how this works. But then there are technical stuff that AI cannot do. For that, you can always ask for help. I really think you should be working on your strengths rather than trying to work on your weakness.
Yeah.
So
So let's take an example, okay?
Yeah.
Let's take an example. Someone is working in a bank.
Yeah.
Been working in the bank for, let's say, 20 years already. Working in probably accounts, right? And now AI is there, and then there's so many conversations around me. How do you think I can adapt? I'm a totally non-technical person.
Okay, so I think in banks there are a lot of things, right? So if you're a manager, you need to know how to make good documents.
Yeah.
You need to know all the systems all the AI that can actually build you really good documents, right? You have to check the output as well because AI is not gonna help you with if it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah.
You have to see what data is trained on. The other thing is analysis. AI does it far better than humans,
Yeah.
right? So it can look at the patterns, it can look at the customer patterns, the lending patterns, and everything, and it can give you signals that a team member might not be able to it. Emails, writing emails. So I think there are small tasks that you look at that you do on every day, that you do every day. That can be if you automate that. It's about saving time, right? So it's about saving time, and accuracy is something else.
Yeah.
This might not be accurate in some situations. Some situation this might be really accurate.
Yeah.
But then if the accuracy is good enough for you,
Yeah.
and if you know the tools, it will save you time. And I think the whole thing is about saving your time.
Yeah. So again, coming back to strengths, right? So right now, like if we look at ourselves, what do you think is a strength for yourself that you definitely know AI can't do right now? Like anyone can take that.
I know.
What's my strength that AI
That
can't
AI
replace?
cannot do it because like the conversation is around how do we understand our strengths and then let the technology do the rest. All right. So what is that one strength, couple of strengths that you might have as a person that might be something that AI does not do right now?
Yeah, empathy.
Empathy.
Because when dealing with people, you have to deal with a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When dealing with people, there's this thing called empathy, right? I think one of the downside of AI is if you look at output, they're more or less the same
Yeah.
Yeah.
for all the people, right? So there is personalization, but there's this thing, if you look at the output, they feel similar. You can actually that is one weakness of outcome of output of all these algorithms. But then I think there's if we I'm not being philosophical, but then there's this thing called empathy. You can actually sit with people and know how they operate, learn a lot of about them, and actually you care about that, right? So I think I'm better in that than algorithms right now. I don't know if they'll be better than me.
But do you agree?
I agree, yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking around like client management as well.
Yeah.
But eventually that's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. AI cannot manage my client for me. I can read the email, but I have a power to personally check in on the person, build
Yeah.
that relation, and maintain the work and the well-being and the connections and everything. I think the emotions.
Again, I think it's a bit more nuanced than that, right? Let's say, for example, there is empathy definitely, there is client relations definitely, but then the entire spectrum of client relationship, right? There are some things that AI can still do.
Yeah, but
So
then the whole process
whole
is
process.
yeah, that's where
Yeah.
we need humans.
Yeah, we definitely need humans. But then how many is the question?
yeah.
And then and then how many when you look at in terms of your business, because your business is probably something that is getting impacted by AI a lot. How do you see this?
I think it has become much easier for us to do research because I think coming from a marketing and branding background, I think the first thing is research. You need to be able to go deep into something and then contextualize it. I think that's where we humans had that upper edge, contextualizing,
Yeah.
and I think curiosity
Okay.
because I think
How do you suddenly learn to become curious?
how to learn.
How do I learn? Let's say like I'm like I've been working in a job for almost 20, 30 years, and then there is certain SOP that I'm following. I'm doing this. So suddenly I need to be curious now. How do I train myself to become curious?
So I follow this framework of 5 why.
Okay.
So there has to be a 5 layer of why for everything.
Okay.
Why,
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
So yeah, that would be my tip for you.
I think I've seen people. I think it's a boon to be curious, but then it's also pain because I've seen a lot of people in my circle who are not curious. We're not trying to learn new things. Who are not interested in doing the big things. They're very much peaceful in themselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will actually follow that path in the future, being themselves, doing what they like.
Yeah.
The movie, what is the movie?
Her.
Wally. Not
Wall-E.
that.
Yeah.
That's the very worst part of where we could go to. But I think, like you said, it cannot do end-to-end things, right? But
Yeah.
it can do parts. And when it can do end-to-end things, might be will be thinking different things than we think right now, right? So
Yeah.
we might not be striving to be the best, whatever we have, whatever. There's this term in Europe called, what do you call it? Salary for all.
Yeah.
UBI, universal basic
Basically,
income.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people will be. I see more and more people going to that side when AI, if AI builds the utopian form of the society that we are looking at.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to business now. Okay. So let's say you have been building businesses for quite some time, and for everyone, the start of the business has been when AI was not so mainstream. So if you have to do the same thing all over again, if you have to build the same company first, would you build the same company in your domain? But then how would you go about building that company if you start today? Anyone?
I
Yeah.
think I would change like almost 80% of how I operate at the moment.
Okay.
I understand that Nepal still, like a lot of the individuals here in Nepal, still prefer human to human connection. If I give you an option to chat with a chatbot versus chat with a human,
Yeah.
I still believe a lot of the people would still prefer to talk with a human. However, when there's influx of clients
Yeah.
who need one-to-one check-ins,
Yeah.
one-to-one reminders, I think a lot of it can still be automated,
Yeah.
which means reducing human hours. Maybe I don't need like 3 people looking after the client. It could just be one
Yeah.
plus AI. From that to data recordings, I understand that AI has also been helping people with early detection
Yeah.
for their mental health. However, at this point, I never integrated the tech part onto it where people can input their moods and
Yeah.
habits and behaviors where it can probably help them
Yeah.
detect their any mental health concerns beforehand. So that, but definitely not replacing therapists with AI, but probably giving them the right direction towards the tool. Like, okay, if you're having again anxieties or something, then this is the breathing technique, and for this you can go on to this YouTube link, and then maybe they can go there and view for it. But however, have a follow-up question, maybe a notification prompt for the next day asking how are you doing, because at the moment all the platforms that we use, it doesn't offer that, so it is still having to deal with like human hours and reminders and pollings and all of it. So I think it would change like almost 80% drastically of how
Okay.
I'm operating at the moment, but I would choose to do the same thing.
Do the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. What do you think are the challenges right now? Like, let's say, for example, when we are building a company like this in a setting like Nepal, what do you think are the technological challenges that you would face to go to that workflow?
One would be investment and trust by the clients and users themselves.
Yeah.
I understand that, again, I started with a proper platform, a proper tech driven platform. There was a reason why I had to scrap it, was because 80%, 90% of the client preferred something rather more simpler. It's thanks to the COVID that people were rather more convenient to use Zoom and Google. So thank God we were like able to divert it there. If not, then people still had like hesitance to adapt to it. So I think it would be the hesitancy from the people itself
Okay. Okay.
and investment.
Definitely. What about you?
I think I would still build the same thing, but if I have to reflect in last 2 years how AI has helped me, I think it has taken away a lot of paperwork, a lot of documentation. I mean, like a lot of reporting is now done using this platform. But I think I would definitely focus more. If I had to build it from the scratch,
Yeah.
I would definitely focus more on personal branding, because I think in the world of AI, humans are going to be more valuable, and I could be more better prepared. Again, in the world of AI influencers, I think how do you be more human, right? So I think definitely more better strategic personal branding, and I think better documentation of my teams so that knowledge base can be stored somehow,
Yeah.
and we can train our models to do more work with the smaller teams.
Right.
Third, I think my focus would be building more with less team, stay more lean. Uh, I think that's all. But when it comes to, again, I think maybe the nuance of your question is because a lot of things are getting automated.
Yeah.
How would you do it differently, right? But I think I started working from 2007 8, and I've seen how photographers who could not adjust to Photoshop getting replaced. Now I see a lot of photographers who are not being able to use generative AI tools
Yeah.
will be replaced. So I think the speed had just gotten faster, but mediocre people losing job was always there. So
Yeah.
again, to coming back to your question, uh, hiring more tech friendly people, even if people are doing just video editing, I would love to I think I would be hiring more interdisciplinary people, like people who understand AI, people who understand tech, people who understand design, because in the world of AI, I think you become much more powerful if you come from a more interdisciplinary background, because you can do a better prompting,
Yeah.
you can use these tools better. So yeah, did I answer you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nirdesh.
I think if I start, I would do a lot of things differently.
Okay.
So given the scenario, there's this all the tools with AI are available. One of the things, not just for me, for a lot of companies, startup are the time to go to market
Yeah.
by building a prototype has
Reduced.
really shortened, right? So that's one. The other thing is we could actually run a lot of experiments.
Yeah.
If we could build a feature within a month,
Yeah.
then we have very less bandwidth to operate, right? Really less bandwidth to experiment. But if I would start it right again, one of the things that Anup said is the team would be lean, but then we had a lot of bandwidth to experiment and think about product. That's one. The second thing is uh, if we are looking support team, right? So the field that I operate in is MIS for schools. Might be I'd not be building MIS for schools right now.
Yeah.
If I started it once again, it would be in education, but it would be something different because I'm passionate about education. A lot of time and energy goes in conversation with the champions of a school, stakeholders of a school. And a lot of times it's more FAQs and all sort of things, right? So with AI, actually we can reduce number of teams without actually changing the quality of customer support. We have seen some companies in Nepal actually trying to do this.
Yeah.
It will take some time for them to be really good, but they are trying to do it. Ting ting hours that I've seen this, right? So customer care. One of the things that I automate is definitely customer care. But then yeah, these are the two things. But then one of the things that we really didn't do in the beginning of the company, and we after the board was formed, we started tracking was parameters. A lot of matrices that we should be tracking. We didn't have knowledge of this, right? So if we had systems that we have right now, we could actually track all the parameters, all the parameters on finances, products, and everything really easily. And also learn about a lot of things. I was really bad at legal and everything, and there weren't a lot of people I could go to and talk to. Now, if I have documents that I can download, feed it to Google LLM notebook, then I can actually learn a few things that I want to, right? So this would be my process that would change. And yeah, I might not be building the same system, but might be building something that would do same thing, but different. Yeah, I don't know how, but that would be something I'd be building.
Do you think it's a worth it investment for any business right now to invest in people who can actually automate workflows?
100%.
100%.
Not just business, like individuals as well.
Individuals as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. How do you do that? Like, let's say, like, how would be an automation workflow look like?
So
for
if I know what does my JD mention, and if I know what does the structure and the output of the work look like, then maybe I can just train myself to learn how can I make things simpler for myself. So I deal with a lot of paperworks, ethics, red flagged cases, and as such. Then eventually, now I don't read the entire document anymore. Like you mentioned, I just feed it to ChatGPT and gives it a summary, and then I can ask like, is this mentioned? What are the things that I should be concerned about, and so on. So it's reducing my hours as well. So I don't think I as a individual, I as a business should only be your focus as to how do I automate the task. But I think every individual at this point should learn how to at least adapt to some bit, so you know how to automate your work to a level as well.
So going back to the mediocre thing, right? Does it mean that if I cannot automate my workflow, I fall in that category?
think it depends on the industry.
I think a great artist is always going to be a great artist.
Yeah. So, but then what
Even-
does the art look like?
I think the,
This time?
I think
We're going into a loophole.
there's this dilemma around the Ghibli
Yeah.
thing, right? So I think that is a real discussion that should happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the name of the person that actually?
The Japanese artist.
Oh, yeah.
So that is a real question that no one can answer, right? Even if the art is good enough,
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we undervalue the artists that actually actually did it with hand?
Yeah. Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then probably the dynamics will change. Okay.
Localization, personalized treatments, experiences still value.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I really think is we always talk about ChatGPT when we talk about AI, right? And actually using ChatGPT is worse in some conditions.
Yeah. It
Right.
is. Yeah.
I'm not saying use of AI,
Yeah.
but then use of ChatGPT. And we actually should be really aware of that as well.
Yeah. Totally agree.
In
For
education,
example?
Okay, for example.
I'll give an example there.
Yeah, I know one,
Yeah.
right? Let me think. I think it was there was some research done by I don't know whatever thing, but we went through the research and um, so there was a tool. There was ChatGPT.
Yeah.
There were 3 control groups. One was taught by teachers.
Yeah.
One was taught by ChatGPT.
Yeah.
One was taught by fine-tuned version of ChatGPT.
Okay.
Right. So how we consume the technology actually changes the outcome, right?
Yeah.
So the ChatGPT group did 50% better
Yeah.
in normal quizzes than the teachers
Teachers,
only
yeah,
teachers group. The other group did 123% better, the fine-tuned version.
Yeah.
When the real exams came in, then ChatGPT group actually did minus. I think it's less 20%. This was recent. The other group actually did not do worse.
Yeah.
It was similar.
Yeah.
But the people that the students that were lagging really behind actually they did better.
Okay.
So that comes to equity as well, but then I'll touch that later. So they were looking, why did it happen, right? So the ChatGPT was actually giving them answers,
Yeah.
and they were copying and pasting. They were not actually. You cannot, for example, you cannot do actual push-up by looking at others do push-up, right?
Yeah.
So the heavy lifting was done by ChatGPT. They
Yeah.
were just copying and pasting. The other group was just given hints.
Yeah.
They were given quizzes, and they were also asked how are they answering the questions by the AI itself. They were trying to more or less replicate the teachers, right? So if you see both are AI, right?
Yeah.
But then the way the students are consuming the technology, that made a huge difference. So we cannot change how we operate, right?
Yeah.
We still need to think.
Yeah.
We still need to have answer by thinking.
Yeah.
We cannot just copy and paste. So that difference actually made the output different. So we cannot say AI is bad or good for education
Yeah.
depending on how one group operates, because they were not actually operating on the right way. We can actually make AI operate in different ways depending on us. So that experiment was really interesting, right? So I think how we decide to use the technology changes a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree. Like whenever I'm taking classes, teaching, I've seen this like exact scenario play out. So I put a problem statement on the screen. And then the students are supposed to do something. Immediate response, click a photo, put it on ChatGPT, and write solve this. Right. That is the level. That is the way I see students approaching a lot of the scenarios. So let's say. And I think the bigger problem that I see is that we are not really trained how to think. We are not really, that has not been our educational process on how do you actually think or how do you actually make decisions. That has never been a part of the system, right? So that probably is like coming to really forefront right now, that we're just using technology, okay, do this, copy paste and put it over there. So I think that seems to be a bigger problem as such as we move forward, definitely.
Just adding to that, there's a pros and cons to everything. So
Yeah.
the cons to having ChatGPT available 24/7, just like how it diminishes the capability to actually like do your homework
Yeah.
all by yourself because you have a comfort of someone else doing it for you. The similar context for mental health as well. So if I have access to ChatGPT all the time, if I'm going through something, I will just prompt it.
Yeah.
It'll tell me what to do and how to calm myself, a solution right on the way. Which also means that I am not exactly using my life skills to navigate my emotion management myself. I'm still relying. So there's also a threat of having access to AI support all the time.
Yeah.
I think there is a bigger threat as well. In case of health and education, we cannot actually rely on ChatGPT that often. I think we can rely on better on more, fine-tuned version, let's say, of the things, because a lot of cases what I see is people just copy and paste, right?
Yeah.
They do all these things, but they do not validate.
Yeah.
These types of technology, when working with health or education, this validation, there should be human in the loop to validate that the outcomes are correct, right?
Yeah.
To check if biasness are not there, right?
Yeah.
I think biasness would be a very big problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how it would play out, but if there is biasness in data, might be grading would be really, grading the test might actually be based on race of the student or caste of the student in case of Nepal, if they are being trained on wrong data, right? So the output and everything that all these algorithm does should be really validated. So we cannot trust directly on ChatGPT. Might be there can be other versions of product that are based might be on those technologies that are being validated. So these are the new products that will actually pop up. So I think in health and education, when people are using ChatGPT, they have to be very, very, very aware of what the output is, because if we look at the parameters we are operating on is accuracy, right? So the accuracy is really important. It's just not about speed. Speed is one of the parameters, but accuracy is something health, education, these industries rely on. So yeah.
I think I agree, because a lot of the data is that, because the AI is trained based on the data that we input. A lot of the data are Western based.
Yeah.
No one's actually come to Nepal to gather all the data. Maybe they have, but not in the similar amount. So our reliance onto trusting the platform should be equally judged as well. So that this is where the due diligence should also kick in. This is exactly where you said the Asian version of AI should come forward, and I think that's going to be really revolutionary.
Might be Nepali version.
Nepali
Yeah,
version,
that would be good actually.
Yeah.
Yesterday we were having this interesting discussion at Himalayan Java. So how do we think? This was not my topic, but how Sisir Dai was talking about he'd love to see AI thinking in Nepalese. And my question was, what is the language that we think in?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. What is the language that we think in? I think we think in language.
Yeah. We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
makes a lot of difference, and the conversation was really interesting. Would there be an AI that will actually show us thinking, sochirakheko in Nepali?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the conversation out of topic. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we can go a bit cross-functional now, and then see. Let's say, for example, if using the AI tools that we have at our disposal, if Anup had to do a marketing campaign for, let's say, Happy Minds,
Okay.
how would you go about it?
Go for it.
Oh my god. So marketing campaign for you. So I have to use AI.
I mean, like you
can.
you can
could.
You can.
you can.
You're mostly into B2B, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
most of your clients. Oh my god, I'm going to be judged for my ideas.
I mean, like there's no wrong.
You know, I have this narrative. The difference between in terms of photographer, the difference between a good photographer and a bad photographer is good photographer does not show his bad images.
Bad image. Okay. Makes sense.
Do you want a prompt to ChatGPT now?
I don't know.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I think I would start a podcast on mental health.
Okay. Let's do business. Yeah.
Sorry, I can't really think of anything as of now.
Okay. I mean, like we can come back to it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, just trying to understand more cross-functionally, right? Because, let's say, for example, there's a lot of learning in mental health as well, and then you're working something on learning as well, right? So there is one general hypothesis that, let's say, we had School of Engineering, School of Science, School of Management, that technically were made so that there could be a better database and people could actually pass through that and become certain kind of people, right? But then with AI, it's going so cross-functional, right? So what are the kind of things do you think that we need to learn now? Let's say, for example, we probably need to understand science as well, probably need to understand mental health as well, probably need to understand so many different things. So if you had to pinpoint three things that we need to learn in 2025, what would you say?
I'd say prompting, because
So how does prompting look like? Let's say, for example, if I've only used ChatGPT to just talk randomly to it, how do I understand prompting?
I think okay. Let me think of one example. Okay, you go to a restaurant and you tell the chef, "Give me your food.
Yeah,
Cook me whatever. Cook me a dish."
yeah,
Now that's not how you talk to the
yeah,
chef or the restaurant people, right? So you say, "I need grilled chicken with." You can say, I need grilled chicken,"
Yeah.
but you can also say, "I need grilled chicken, less spicy,"
yeah,
right? So you have to be very specific on what you want. That's what prompting is.
Yeah.
If you are not very specific, it can give you answers that you would not like or you are not looking forward to,
Yeah.
and it's not doing right thing, right? So
Yeah.
when you are vibe coding,
Yeah.
you need to know how to do prompting. If you are doing your research, you need to know how to prompt. There's this very simple rule: what, who, what, how.
Yeah.
But then if you go in deeper, then you can add context, you can add timing, you can add a lot of things. IFT, there's this shortcut IFT. I don't know what I forget. IFT IT I guess. So while prompting, you have to be very specific.
Yeah.
But I've tried prompting from the very beginning, and I've tried to become a good prompter, not prompt engineer. And I think it's also a skill. You keep on doing it, and you become better at it, better at it, and yeah, it just keeps on going. But right now, what I found out is you can ask ChatGPT to create prompt for you.
Yeah.
That also works, right? So that's one. The other thing is, I think you really need to learn the art of analyzing things, right? So if everything is given and everything is done by things like AI and everything, now I think you need to be better at analyzing not just the outcomes but everything, the process that's going in, right?
Yeah.
So we do not analyze things because we are always bogged up by small things.
Yeah.
But now you have that freedom to think more,
Yeah.
analyze things more. And that brings me to third point. You have to be critical thinker in this world of AI. I think that these are three things. This is more philosophical, but I think these three things are the things that you really need at this time.
Do you think as humans we are very bad communicators?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you, so if I cannot be so specific in normal everyday conversation, is that the same thing? Do you think that's
Yeah.
reflecting when we're communicating to technology?
We are lazy communicators. At first, when I used to use ChatGPT, I didn't think it was a really good technology because it was not giving what I wanted. Then I realized this is like a baby, right? So
Yeah.
you need to be more specific on prompting. Now this is my habit. I really prompt well.
Yeah.
When my friends look at my prompt, it's like this long, right? But
Yeah.
I think we are not bad communicators. We are lazy communicators, and we suppose whatever we communicate would be understood by the person that's before us, right?
Yeah.
In the case of technology, that is not the case, right? So a lot of times I know you, and whenever you talk about something, I can build up in my mind these are the assumptions, right? And maybe we're more accurate on those assumptions, but the technology isn't, right? So I think it makes us even better, more structured communicator.
Structured
Prompting actually makes us more structured communicator, not with humans but with the machines.
Okay, but then probably that skill translates as well.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe people will get into better relationships moving forward.
I don't think that.
And machines are more patient than humans. So I think
That's true as well.
Yeah, they're more present.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll do any good to relationships.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably a separate conversation in itself as well. So, what do you think of three top skills in 2025?
if I have to see this from let's divide this into a more of long term and short term.
Yeah.
For example, if you're talking about long term, I think it would be more building more meaningful human connection.
Yeah.
Being, like Nirdesh said, being more empathetic so that you can understand the other person more.
Yeah. But if I can't communicate well, how can I be empathetic? Or can I be? I don't know.
Empathy can be communicated without words as well.
Yeah.
I think listening is a great way to build a great relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something I've learned after boasting so many people. But I think in a long run, I think I'll put mostly all the soft skill sets.
Yeah.
Because I think that if they, as of now, we know that soft skill set is something that
Yeah.
AI will not be able to level up with
Yet.
humans as of now,
Yeah, as of now.
yet. So I think in the long run, it would be more focusing more on soft skills.
Okay.
In a short run, I think I would go with a, let's say, more of a T-shaped skill set. For example, you have to be very deep in one domain, and you have to be
Yeah.
you have to be able to pull. You have to be able to be multidisciplinary. I mean, like
Yeah.
you have to be able to pull information from multiple sectors, contextualize it, and use it in one vertical.
Okay.
So yeah, I think go niche,
Yeah.
choose something, go deep into it.
Yeah.
At the same time, have that enough breadth to contextualize a lot of things having around.
Yeah.
And in long run, I think focus more on soft skills.
Soft skills. Okay. Do you feel the same?
I feel the same. I think both of the answer basically wraps up my opinion as well. Beginning with research, you've got to be well rounded
Yeah.
as a person on its own, but regardless of whatever industry you're coming from, no matter what hierarchy you are at, you have to be more well rounded as a person.
Yeah.
Meaning, be good with research. Doesn't mean that we spend like hours and days and months and years just on one document for you to learn about how to get this one thing right.
Yeah.
Which leads me to being a better prompter. You can just feed in a data and maybe take the best of conclusion and learning through ChatGPT itself or any of the other programs, and find the soft skills leaning more towards AI skills as well. Sometimes what we also usually do is sometimes if someone is just giving a different behavior reaction towards something, I write down the entire scenario. I write down my responses. I even feed in a screenshots, and it tells you how it could have also been done. So can't be just assuming that I am the best friend who knows how to be empathetic, sympathetic, anything. Like I'm the best communicator. I know how to comfort people. It still is able to give you like ways how you can further polish yourself.
Okay.
So these three, yeah.
So
One more I'd like to add is being resourceful.
resourceful. Oh.
What about you?
In terms of skills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 skills.
So yeah, I think critical thinking. I agree. Definitely, critical thinking is very important to be able to decipher what that model is giving. One thing that I see a bit more is that to really understand the strengths and weaknesses of the AI systems that we are working with, and again, working with the strengths only. Let's say, for example, if I'm working a ChatGPT based model and then I'm asking it to analyze really large data sets, it won't really do a good job, right? But then if I have to make my email better, it'll obviously do a good job, right? So I think that is where we need to build some competence on, okay, what is DeepSeek good at? What is ChatGPT good at? What levels of models can do what kind of work? Let's say the base model can do some kind of work well. The deep research model can do a very extensive research, right? So I think that understanding is very important, because ChatGPT in itself is, or any other LLM in itself is not like one size fits all kind of thing. The other thing I agreed to what you said about T-shaped, and I think probably comes to the resourcefulness as well. We should be able to connect multiple dots and I think create value out of it. And I think that is a very important skills in today's world. And I think third is, I think even it becomes even more important than previously is selling. I think if people can sell something, then there is value to exchange, right? If they can't sell something, and that probably brings to the larger technical mass that we have, and then that's a general hypothesis on, because the technical mass is probably not versed with selling soft skills, and that's where probably the learning edge for that community also is, I mean, in terms of skills.
Do you think, a follow-up question on your point number 1, do you think the differences between all these different models are actually tangible enough to actually make a difference in our regular life? For example, if I use ChatGPT for all my things instead of using Gemini or Perplexity or DeepSeek,
Yeah.
do you think it...
Anup had to put in tangible.
I was paid for
Thank
this.
you. No. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, like, seems like for the kind of for the basic kind of a work that we do, one model should be good enough, no?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, I think it comes down to how much data is there. There is a foundation model. All of these are like foundation models. On top of it, we have a lot of data, and then that contextualizes that well. But then I think it depends. Let's say, for example, if Claude is good for programmers, and if ChatGPT is good for salespeople, I think differences are marginal. But I think rather than use cases, what I'm trying to say is, let's say, ChatGPT base model, ChatGPT deep research model, right? There are different things these two can do, right? That is where this distinction generally is, and then the use cases around it definitely. That's what I think. Okay, so coming back to the kind of person that you would pay the most salary as of today, what would the persona look like? So if it's a young kid right now, like maybe getting into mental health, getting into marketing or getting into technology, that one persona that you'd pay the most amount of money, how would that look like? That person look like?
I think someone who could actually do things end to end and deliver things on time by using the latest and greatest tools, technology. Uh, it has to the person that can do something in lesser cost and faster than others, but
Yeah.
they can do it end to end.
End
I
to
think
end, okay.
I had not said that before now because if you need to build a product and if you know there are people who can actually build the versions very fast,
Yeah.
the prototypes very fast. I think that kind of person I'd actually love to have
Okay. Okay. What do you
in the
want?
gym.
I mean, like you ask to any entrepreneur, I think the answer would be same. Like whoever would be able to bring out the most value on a limited resources, you would be willing to pay them the highest. But I think maybe this question is also connected with the earlier question you asked me.
Yeah.
So interestingly, today I opened up a vacancy in LinkedIn for a AI researcher. So now I think how I've evolved in these couple of years that earlier I used to think that it is my job to identify what are the things that I can automate in my work process. Now I feel that there could be a one dedicated position in my company whose job is to think what are the ways every other employee's work could be automated, right?
Yeah.
So I think most probably in a week or so we'll be hiring a
Yeah.
1 or 2 person whose job would be to identifying what are the works being done in the company
Yeah.
and what are the tools that are already available, maybe free tools, maybe paid tools, or can we actually host this open source LLM locally and do something about it. So I think now I am willing to pay a good salary to someone who can come on board, identify the loopholes of our company, identify the operational mess that can be automated
Yeah.
so that our existing team can actually perform better with limited resources. I think more than happy to pay good salary to that particular individual.
What happens to the change management of people who are probably already in? I mean, like if there are there's a general hypothesis that if they are not making decisions in any organization that is probably directed by an SOP, you do things this way. Those are the roles that will probably be in risk, right? So how do you think the change management can happen in a media company like yours?
And I think the question boils down to the mediocre, being mediocre. If, for example, if somebody is not willing, for example, let's say we identified a loophole, we identified a operational mess that could be automated with a free existing tool
Yeah.
that don't really need to. I mean, like there are a lot of free tools, right?
Yeah,
At
yeah.
this point of time, it's just that we don't know them
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
I think if that particular person, if that particular change is becoming difficult, the person has to go. And I think that's how people are losing job. They're not being able to adopt these tools even when they're taught. I think these are the mediocre people who should be losing their job right away.
Yeah, yeah.
Who should be?
We should be.
That is the strong.
Yeah, no, but probably that's the reality that we're facing on here right now. Right? What do you think?
There is a Nepali term called jugadu.
Yeah,
Jugaad.
Yeah, jugad.
Jugaad.
No matter
Yeah,
what specialty you come from,
Yeah.
the person just knows
yeah,
how to crack out of a situation.
yeah,
Proactive, good communicator just fits into any department with any person, any client. But maybe with a little bit more sensitivity and compassion.
okay.
I think that would be the ideal employee for me.
The idea of domain knowledge didn't really come in all of your answers. Like, don't we think domain knowledge is important of the business of the?
So I think domain knowledge is something the existing team members have, right? We just need somebody who can leverage this domain knowledge and introduce these newer tools
Yeah.
that they can use to expedite their.
So if there is someone who can use AI tools and automate systems for you, that's the person who's going to be paid the highest in today's time.
Not just AI tools. I think saying AI tools should be very specific, right? Any kind of tools. And about domain knowledge, Alok, what I felt is I'm not from education background. I did my engineering. But I think our team knows a lot about how education system works and
Yeah.
how it should work, because I think we can always, we might not be researcher on education, but the people who can actually grasp, can learn about different domains. I think these people actually can get things done.
Yeah.
They are not very rigid. They are not, they are more curious of learning things. Yeah, this kind of people actually, I'd pay for this kind of people rather than domain experts. Until and unless I really need a domain expert, right?
Yeah.
So there are things that requires domain experts.
Like,
Um, you know, like right now might be. Uh, okay, so I got a problem that our developers cannot solve, working with LLM. Then I have to really find someone who really knows how LLM works, right?
Yeah.
Because my developers cannot go in and read all the research papers and find out what is not working. They can experiment and find out. That's one way. Do hundreds of experiments, find out what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
But there are LLM experts who know, looking at the output, what is the problem that we are having, right?
Yeah.
So these are two different scenarios.
Yeah.
I think I can relate to that as well. As long as you're open-minded, your education background shouldn't necessarily only describe what industry should you fit in. I do come from psychology background. And a lot of my team members heavily come from psychology background, but you see them doing business. So as long as the passion, hobby, open-mindedness is there, it basically makes you well-rounded enough
Yeah.
for you to be relevant and agile enough. So yeah.
makes sense. Do you think the same?
Yeah. And for me, I think to somebody who can, at this point of time, I think as an entrepreneur, I think somebody I can pay the highest would be somebody who can manage more teams.
More teams.
Yeah.
Manage people.
Manage people, delegate,
Yeah.
make people more accountable, is accountable in his or her own words and actions.
Do you think you can use an AI system that can track people's performance and then give you?
No, tracking people and making them accountable, motivating them, getting the things done, solving their problems is a different thing, right? And I think that's where AI would not be able to catch up. So even if there's solution that can track people,
Yeah.
I think you would need a human to motivate them, make them more accountable. I think so. These are the, again, I think connecting back to, these are the software skill set
Yeah.
that we'll need in a long run, even with an existence of amazing models or AI tools.
Yeah, I think coming to the point that Anup said, AI is being used a lot on tracking employees' performance and if they leave, what time they leave, and they are good at catching signals. So they do it really better than humans, right?
Humans,
So,
But
there
maybe
was-
not the context, right?
yeah, so there was a study where AI was used to track 15,000, I guess, students if they will be dropping out. And they did, the algorithm did it with 70-80% accuracy, and it was better than women's because they could actually track before they actually left, right? So you can always, so it's on time.
Yeah.
They are doing it continuously.
Yeah.
But what after tracking? Now these people are going to leave.
Yeah.
They know what these people are. The AI cannot make them stay. The teachers have to go, the consultants have to go in and talk to them. What are the problems? Look at the learning gaps, look at might be their learning patterns, their family background, might be problems in the family and everything. Now there is where humans come in. They are good at tracking. Algorithm will be good at tracking, but we will always need humans to keep them in school,
Yeah.
right? So that is, they can recognize pattern, but they cannot make them stay.
Yeah.
And making them stay is the thing that we want, right?
Yeah.
We can always know these people are going to leave, and we cannot let them leave. So that's, I think, that is the real case scenario that happens. That is happening right now.
So generally, but people who can actually create value, again, do the end-to-end thing, and then lead people, manage people, and then make them more accountable, as you said. Okay. So then is that technically, does that person need to be a technology, from a technology background, or can be from any background? What do you think about that? Because there is a delta of some difference a technology person would bring and a non-tech person would bring. What do you think in that scenario?
I don't think I get the question.
So So like that person who can manage the end-to-end thing, does that person need to be from a technology background, any technology background, or that person can be from a business background?
I think I might be biased in this to answer this because I've seen people coming from engineering background often doing better in a very pressure situation and thinking out of the box, right? Not always, and I don't think it's because they came there because they are engineering students. The engineering, you have to do projects and you have to do this and do that things, right? So I think it doesn't depend on background. We see we see that the pattern is there in engineering students, but I think the people who are problem solvers
Yeah.
who can break down big chunk of problems into smaller ones, and actually if they cannot solve it, they can find someone to solve it for them.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be, like you said, connecting dots.
Yeah.
They can solve A but they cannot solve B.
Right.
Find someone who can do this. Yeah, so that kind of people can come from any background. But as the going into the college learning for 4 or 5 years actually makes you think in certain ways, right?
Yeah.
If you look at doctors, maybe they are not that flexible. They don't have that flexibility to experiment, right?
Yeah.
Because it's life. They have
Yeah.
to do certain processes. In businesses, might be there are things because you are dealing with finance. You cannot do. You might not have that flexibility. But in engineering, it's like building something new, right? So, I think it's not about the course itself or the background. We see that pattern in engineering students, but then it's more of if they can do really solve the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it make? Do
I
you
think,
resonate?
yeah, it makes sense as well. The education stream does not exactly be relevant at this point. But then again, I do have like a counter opinion. You said engineering students, I say business students. Me coming from project management background, we were always taught to think from the end, think outside the box. And like there is no limit to thinking. So that's how we've been crafted to think as well. So at this point, I think that the stream is not relevant.
I think I'll disagree with both of you. I'll say somebody from the art background.
What do you think?
Somebody from the art background.
Somebody from art background.
Yeah, 100%.
Why so?
No, I mean, like, again, I think jokes apart, I think background does not really matter. I think it's up to that individual. How good are they with problem solving? Second, I think how good are they with learning new things?
Yeah.
Because somebody coming from a business background, they can really make most out of the existing AI tools. Somebody coming from a project background, if they can really learn few prompting and few tech vibe coding, let's say.
Yeah.
I think it's about that problem solving nature and that learning attitude.
How do I show I'm a problem solver? Like if I have to apply in a job, how would you, like, what kind of problem? How do I show you that I'm a problem solver?
I think you get hired, and if you don't solve, you get fired.
Case simulations are there as well.
Okay.
Like real life case situation scenarios. We can share it, and then you can share how, in a parallel universe, how would you do it? And there is a reason why probation and trial periods
Yeah.
are there as
Yeah.
well. So necessarily don't hire just yet.
100%, 100%. So there is a term, hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
So I think lately, I think something that we have introduced in our hiring system is we started interview people multiple times. So if the position is for a bit senior position, we'll just not make a decision on a one interview. So I think first interview would be done by the CEO, second interview would be done by me, third interview would be more mutual with other project leaders. They would be working together.
Okay.
So I think that's something that we have introduced lately, and it's working quite well.
And at this point, it's not only about their skill set, also about their agility at the same time. Sometimes amazing team member, but just struggles to fit into the team, changes the dynamic of the entire working environment.
Agree.
So at that point, your skill set, your mindset, the main reason why we are paying you XYZ is not relevant because you just don't seem to be able to fit into the culture.
Yeah.
There are a lot of I see a lot of very talented individuals that they cannot. The people that are really talented, they have the skills, but they do not deliver.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to have someone who delivers rather than having this very long thought of chain of thoughts and never actually converting that to output. Yeah.
Okay, great. This is just zooming out, right? So let's say we are in a post AI state right now, and then obviously a lot of these kind of models are getting built in the US and the China, in India now very aggressively also. For countries like ours and other countries like Nepal, what do you think are the challenges and opportunities when you look at it from your domain?
My domain as in
Education,
education.
yeah.
Okay. The opportunities that I see is, you know, we always talk about making education better, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is the golden time. We can actually personalize education for each and every individual. We can actually do that. That's one. The second thing is just in context of Nepal, just think about top teachers in Kathmandu. They are teaching 20, 30, 40 kids. The access they have to education and the access the people in Darsula, wherever far west, far east have to education are very different. If you have personalized tutors, actually the gap, there's no gap in the teaching methodologies, right? So that makes good education accessible. It makes it personalized, it makes it accessible, and I think these two are the power of these two are the power that AI brings into education world. The third thing is intervening in time, right? So the exam system that we are used to actually only looks at 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and if we do it continuously and we see patterns and teachers can intervene. It's empowering teachers. The third is empowering teachers. So it will really empower students and teachers. Like there was no technology that could do it.
Yeah.
There were textbooks changed into videos. That was only difference, right?
Difference, yeah.
There was blackboard and there came
Whiteboard,
displays you can write on. But this technology can actually change education forever.
But don't you think language is going to be a barrier because all the larger models that are getting built not really trained in Nepali, and then the person in Darchula,
Yeah, to be
the access to
honest,
information.
I never learned how to write Nepali in a good way. I don't know Rosso Dirga, but I actually did good because I think 5, 6 years from now there will be a very good LLM in Nepali as well. But right now, I think we have to use the resources that we have, right? And I don't know if it could be used to teach language. I'm not sure of that, but yeah, I think that one is a barrier. But then there are challenges as well, right? So, like you said, the language could be a barrier. The access to resources could be a barrier, right? So, we might not have the technologies to build this kind of system that are very localized to Nepal.
Yeah.
Might be it would be for US, but it might not be for us. That might actually give rise to biases that we discuss. That are challenges. A bigger challenge is how do we use this technology? How do we adapt to this technology, right? While the US and Europe are ahead of us and they're already using this technology, and if our education system, the decision makers and the champions of our education system, they are reluctant of using this kind of technology. They are not used to using this technology. Then the gap will be bigger and
Bigger and
bigger.
bigger, yeah.
Even if the students can use it, if the teachers and the policymakers are not using this technology, then the gap will be bigger. And the biggest problem, I guess, is making teachers use these technologies. Right? They are very reluctant. They do not want to learn new things. So I'm not saying they're. So I think it's. I should not be saying that. There are a set of teachers that really do not want to change.
Yeah.
Not all.
Yeah.
So how do we make teachers adapt to these new technologies would be a big challenge because at the end of the day, learning is not just about the students.
Yeah.
It's about teachers, even parents. So that would be a bigger challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, adapting to the new world.
Okay. What do you think in your line of business?
There is a concept called sovereign AI. I think every country has to be investing on our own artificial intelligence because you cannot outsource your data outside and get the intelligence, right? You have to be producing intelligence within. So I think, and as a country, if you don't invest on sovereign AI, how would you have enough experience and expertise to take a part in a global AI like policy.
Yeah.
For example, so I think sovereign AI is definitely one, but now it's up to the government how seriously they take it. It's just like like how we outsource herbs outside
Yeah.
Nepal, and then we buy the same medicines made out of the same herbs.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly how it is going to be. And imagine how our culture being told from someone else's narrative. Imagine if you start typing "Where was Buddha born?"
Yeah.
On AI built by India. What's the answer are you going to get?
Biasness will always be there.
And a lot of, I think, in a post AI world, the newer generation will be learning a lot of things through AI. So how are we going to preserve our culture? How are we going to say our story?
Yeah.
So if we want to have a right narrative around our story, culture, history, we definitely have to build our own sovereign AI. And I think no brainer.
Yeah.
And coming, you're also asking about my industry, right?
Yeah.
I think a couple of years more is needed to actually paint a full picture of how this content industry is getting shaped. But in my last 10, 12 years of experience, I've seen all you have to do is don't doubt the technology, leverage it, leverage it, leverage it. So that's something I have on my mind.
Yeah.
All I have to do is leverage it, and it's been few weeks. I've been thinking about creating this new post on AI researcher. So I will be having somebody dedicated to job would be to identify newer tools that we can integrate in our existing system, so we can be more efficient, more leaner, and bring more value.
So for sure is like as critical as education, and like if not more, right? Like mental health, right? So what do you think are challenges for countries like ours? Opportunities as well. I think we touched upon a bit in the beginning that we don't have enough therapists, and then obviously there are going to be more people AI agents who can actually do some level of the work. But what do you think are the challenges in that sense?
Challenges, I think, initially would be the mindset. Like I said, not everyone is youth, not everyone
Yeah.
is open
Yeah.
to try and test the tech. Not everyone knows how to even write what they're feeling to even send it to an AI therapist.
Yeah.
So I think culturally we're not there. When I say we, I mean like we can't just think on behalf of people who live inside the valley.
Yeah.
There are still a lot of people who still use the tuk-tuk phones,
Yeah. Yeah.
where you don't even have access to the internet. So we can't assume that psychology and AI goes great and let's invest in this and solely focus your divert there, because we still have a lot of like people who live in and below the poverty line. However, for those who do have access, I think the investment plays a huge role as well. Giving you an insight within the psychology industry of Nepal, a lot of the times things only move once you get funding, and a lot of the funding has to come from abroad. So there's heaps of investment influxing from Norway and US and other countries and INGOs and organizations, but never Nepal investing in AI or tech for mental health.
Yeah.
So I think mindset and finances funding would be one of the main barriers. But looking on the better aspect of it, I think the early detection part would be really good, because even now when you're coming to see a therapist, there's always a lot of the times a gap between 5 to 7 days before you see your therapist again. But in between that time, we are still trying to manually reach out to people and check in on them. But maybe if a person is habituated to text to a chatbot, fit in the data, give you daily reports or maybe journaling prompts of how you're doing, then those data could also be shared with the therapist, where early intervention, early detection for any mental health concern plus human therapist, the combination would matter a lot in terms of recoveries as well. Similarly goes to data handling and reporting. I think you and I have talked a lot about it as well. How can we digitalize the therapy notes? Imagine there's a person crying next to you, can't be like typing. So the writing version as well, there's a different feel to a paper and a pen, so not everyone is like conveniently shifting towards iPads and pens as well. But I think looking towards leveraging the AI's talent in analyzing reports and withholding the data in a better format, and then combining with the human essence of it, that would give a great boost towards the mental sector of Nepal.
Okay.
Are you aware of this company called Abridge?
No.
which does similar thing. I mean, like for example, if you're consulting a patient, so all you do is activate the app and it start taking notes, and then by the session is over, it will send it on a system.
Yeah, I think those
Yeah.
models do really well if the counseling is in English.
Yeah.
Right now.
Also, ethics, a lot of the time, data privacy.
Yeah.
Knowing that I am recorded already gives me a setback towards how much am I willing to open up again. Because, the ugliest stories come out inside of therapy. And this is mostly because I know that everything that we talk is inside this room between you and me.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think it does really good. I use Otter. Yeah. And so I use two products, Crisps and Otter.
Okay.
Crisps actually gives you the summaries and the transcript as well, but Otter does it better. So there's Crisp for noise cancellation and Otter, but it really struggles with our language, right? So
Yeah.
that's a big problem.
Yeah.
But then when the whole conversation is in English, user stream, I do it a lot, right? So there are summaries,
Yeah.
then it makes the accent points. That,
Yeah.
That's really easy. But then I go back and think, so he was talking about this specific word, right?
Yeah.
I forgot the context. I can just go back and look at the transcript. And yeah, I think that could be translated into the therapy sessions as well,
Yeah.
with all the privacy and everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know. In Nepalese, it doesn't do well.
Do you think English becomes an even more important language in that sense?
It has always because our parents didn't think they needed English, right? So they did a bit of English. We now think it is more. We need it more.
Because the best models
Yeah,
right now,
For the moment.
for the moment, yeah, I think like, but then as we move forward, as these models are getting better and better, do you think that is going to be a even more bigger competitive edge?
yeah, I guess.
Once you have like better efficiency towards English, you automatically have better
Access.
output and access to a lot of platforms.
But I don't see this as a major concern. I don't know, because maybe it's just me, because with the kind of innovation we're talking about,
Yeah.
language does not really have to be that complicated, that barrier.
Yeah.
And I was listening to this podcast with Mark Zuckerberg the other day, and it was between Mark Zuckerberg, Samir and Colin, and Mr. Beast. And Mr. Beast was talking about how just 15% of the world population are native English speaker,
Yeah.
and a lot of content, a lot of views that they get are from non-English speakers, right? So, and Mark Zuckerberg mentioned how they are working so much on AI dubbing.
Yeah.
So I don't know, the whole narrative of this language should not is a big deal right now, because there has not been any right invention so far, but maybe in next 6 months, maybe in next 1 year.
But
Not
then,
just speaking, but also writing and reading.
yeah,
So
yeah. I think there should always be one unit that translates to all other units, right? So that's the
Yeah.
same in every everything, right? So there's for now there's dollar for currency,
Yeah.
and there's so English I think is that unit because there should be something that converts to other. I'm not saying Nepalese would fade out, but English is kind of a universal language
Yeah.
that everywhere. If you know English, it's sort of you can go anywhere and.
Let's say, for example, when we are uploading these content on YouTube, let's say YouTube just introduces a plugin where you can pretty much translate it into any language. Don't you think, like, only looking from a marketing lens, that the content in English is going to be more easier to convert into different languages? The distribution can be a lot more wider than other languages.
I think,
But then I also like the idea of unit conversion.
but I think unit should be 0 and 1.
Yeah. Okay. So just trying to move towards the end now. Just want to understand, because like we've been playing around with the technology a lot. What is one hope and one absolutely urgent move that everyone should make towards adoption of AI right now in countries like ours?
I think for me it's sovereign AI. We have to figure out a way where we use our own data
Yeah.
and to create our own intelligence. We cannot be depending on. I mean, like, imagine government agencies using ChatGPT to get intelligence out of data. I think that would not be a very ideal world, right?
Yeah.
Again, talking about, because I think, for example, NRB has this policy where banks cannot host their data on a data center that is not physically in this geography, and that makes sense. That makes so much sense. And I think we should have our own algorithm that converts our data into intelligence that we own, and not really depend on someone else for the intelligence. Because I think at the end of the day, we have everything. I feel we have power, green power.
Yeah.
What should be stopping us from, beside fun, what should be stopping us to create our own algorithms?
Okay. And hope.
Hope.
Yeah.
Hope is, I think we hope this technology will eradicate the hunger,
Hunger.
at least.
Okay. How do you say that?
How do I see it?
How do you see that?
I mean, like, while we talk about a lot of things, a lot of innovation, going to the Mars, automating a lot of things, we still know that people who are struggling hard that for a plate of food, right? So I think with this technology, if we can solve the core basic problem, and I'm really hopeful it will.
Yeah.
I think food would be a lot cheaper if we start seeing robots farming, if we start see robots building houses. I think things should be much cheaper. So yeah, maybe that's the more human side,
Yeah.
that a leverage that I have against AI.
Okay. Okay.
For me, I think the hope is how the technology can actually optimize the resources that we have. Right. So right now, we are using a lot of resources.
Yeah.
If you see this in semiconductor industry, we are using a lot of silicon and everything that we need. I think there's only that much rivers where you can build hydros, right? So, optimizing resources is one thing that I think the AI algorithms will figure out. The other thing is how do we solve the big problems, the cancer,
Yeah.
going to the Mars, right? Because it will take us might be decades or even centuries. How do we shorten that time, especially with health and education?
But what about in context of countries like ours?
In context of countries like ours, right? This is a very hard question. How do we make, so this is the challenge, right? How do we make policies, because we have lost all the races, right? We have lost the digitization race, the manufacturing race with every other country, but at this point everybody is kind of between ground zero and one.
Yeah.
Nobody is in ground two. So how do we design the policies and the environment that favors development and use of AI technologies for better within the country itself, so that we do not lose out? Because I'm seeing a lot of young talents coming out from Nepal. They can dream big, they can build things, and they can compete with the whole globe. How do we foster this kind of people? How do we facilitate them? How do we not? How do we make enable them to think bigger? That this is the challenge, not from just from political side, but also from the societal side, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I think that is one of the problems, and I think this is hope as well as the challenge as well for me, both. Yeah.
What do you think, Shreya?
Hope. Well, my major concern at the moment is stigma and lack of education. Schools don't teach it, workplaces don't teach it, colleges don't teach it. At least people are aware that you can talk to ChatGPT. Once you enter your prompt, it paraphrases and gives you the keywords. Like, I hear that you're feeling dash.
Yeah.
This is what you can. So it's basically making people more literate.
Yeah.
So I actually hope and wish that more people jump onto such platforms to prompt their feelings. So now they are more aware about feelings, emotions, behaviors. I think in a way it's actually like encouraging people to be more open to coming forward for taking a professional support from therapists. So I see it changing the landscapes. Obviously, I also deal with a barrier that maybe people will stop using human therapists and change or swift on to AI therapy parallelly. But at least it is educating people. It is making more people aware, helping me heaps with destigmatization as well. So that's the hope for me.
Yeah.
To add to Shreya's point, I think one more hope, like Shreya said, is to to lessen the gap between emerging and developed nations.
Yeah.
In case of availability of experts in health and education. Because with AI, actually, I think that would be the scenario, right? So having this personalized tutor, personalized health, I'd say personalized health consultants or doctors, that would actually lessen the gap between the emerging nations and the developed nations, and that would give emerging nations an edge if and only if this side, the emerging nations, policymakers, and the societal norms can adapt to the changing world.
Yeah. This is going back to the idea of like how we need to, as individual, focus on strengths and use AI technology to leverage the next phase of growth. How, like, what do you see is Nepal's strength that we can leverage, or any other country like Nepal, which is not global north, that can leverage AI to actually build something of value? What is the race we probably should not?
I've lived in UK, I've traveled to Europe, and I've lived here in Nepal. We are really good at compassion. Like, we are amazing, compassionate people here in Nepal. I don't know you, but if I see you struggling, I'm like, I wouldn't think twice to come ahead and help.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think these soft skills that we're talking about,
Yeah,
I think we would be really good
yeah.
at building something out of the emotions and cultural norms and sensitivities and inclusivity if we were to build something up from here.
Yeah, I do feel that too. I think Nepalese are one very community-driven people, and I think great community builders as well. And then they, like trying to stay knit with each other. What do you guys think?
I think that's true in some cases, but I think we are losing that. We are losing that essence right now. What I'm seeing is I'm an optimist, but the recent happenings that we see, we are actually losing this thing called, we are not that ethical like we used to be. The reason might be we are not that well off. We do not have the resources, and we struggle. A lot of people struggle day by day in a lot of things, and that's being resourceful, right? But I think, we are a lot community driven. We're ethical beings, but now we are losing that essence. And every individual should actually give a thought on this one as a Nepalese.
That makes sense.
And we saw what happened recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my answer is a bit technical. I think data centers,
Data centers. Okay.
more data centers.
Yeah, I think technically that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thing. But I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert.
Neither I am.
Yeah, but we have heard there are uraniums, right?
Yeah.
So energy could be one,
Yeah.
right? I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
But then we have hydro. Hydro is a renewable source. Might not be as sustainable as we think.
Yeah.
So might be we don't have an edge over there. But we have places where you can build hydro and build data centers nearby. So that could be one. The other one is Nepal really has an edge on the young talents. And I'm not saying this because, I'm saying this because I'm seeing a lot of people working in AI, very young,
Yeah.
and getting things done. There are bigger countries than us who will have a lot of talents. But if we only focus on one or two things, then compared to others in per capita, we have better talent in here. In most better than a lot of South Asian countries in per capita, right? So not one to one. So I see hope in that side. I see a lot of young innovators if given three things. One, the knowledge of thinking big, if they can really dream big. The other, given the favorable policies to do whatever they are doing. The third is resources, financial resources and network. I see a lot of good startups coming out of Nepal. And I'm not saying because I want to say it, because I see young people doing that, and they are leaving the country. They are leaving the country.
Yeah. Final thought. We are in a post-AI world. Would you build a business in a global south country like Nepal, or you want to build it more on a Silicon Valley, global north, in Europe, in Singapore, in some other country? Do you see an opportunity big enough here if you had to start again?
Yeah, I'd take this one because, if I had to start again, I would not build a company here.
Okay.
This is a very honest one. But I'll have the team in Nepal.
Okay.
might not be the whole team, but a larger chunk of team in Nepal, because we have the talent. There's cost effectiveness as well, and you know the we have all the necessary ingredients except few things. One is financial access. The marketing is that the other countries have, and the access to wider audience. That's why I think the main office or whatever would be out of Nepal, but the bigger chunk of the workforce would still be in Nepal.
Okay. Okay. What do you think?
For me, I think I would still choose to start from Asia,
Okay.
but maybe not Nepal.
Okay.
Singapore, Thailand, India, and then eventually also maybe a franchise here in Nepal, but maybe not start with Nepal. It lacks a lot of resources when it comes to introducing newer ideas, especially when there is a newer startup. Like I'm trying to mix mental health and include tech in it, but I'm also dealing with stigma.
Yeah.
I can't be like profit driven because I also talk about impact. So it's very like sensitive, and the resources that a nation should allow and give and provide for such ideas to flourish, it's just not mature yet. So I would still start with Asia because the market on this side of the world is not mature yet, but maybe not Nepal.
I think there are a few problems in Nepal that really bothers me, and I would like to solve that.
Yeah.
And considering this is a post-AI world, and if these problems are still relevant, I will still start from here because I think it really bothers me. There are a few problems that really bothers me, and I would love to solve it in my lifetime. Additionally, I think I like the story of being local, then regional and global. I think it just makes the story more organic, more genuine, and even when you actually go global, I think you have this amazing story. Yeah, I started from my land and then made it regional and made it global. So yeah, to your a very specific question, yes.
That's very interesting because let's say, for example, when we see entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, like the thought process they would technically have is that I want to build the biggest tech company in the world. I have very barely heard that I want to build a big tech company for USA, or I want to build a big tech company for Singapore. Do you think that mindset of localization is a bit more overpowered in our context?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people, young people, they are working with really great technology, and they say we are building for Nepal. And I do the maths, I do everything, and because when you look at Nepal, the adaptation of technology is really low, right?
Yeah.
Because there are only few cities that can actually adapt to these technologies. There are few people, and the math doesn't work out a lot of times. And I asked them why don't you think bigger and do it the same technology, the same problem, but for a bigger market, they actually cannot think big. And I think that's due to our societal norms and how we're grown up, right? So there was this one snippet of podcast that I recently heard. It was the founder of Oyo.
Okay, Nirdesh.
Yeah. So he said the difference between he was thinking of building 10 guest houses, and
Yeah.
people were thinking that is a very big thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Then he went to US and he talked to anyone. They were saying we're building global companies because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Whatever we build here is used by the world.
Yeah.
I think that one mindset shift can actually change a lot of things for young innovators in Nepal. And if not, then we'll always building for local market, competing in the local market. The market itself is small,
Yeah.
and you are competing for the same market. And so you'll never be. There'll be no global companies coming out of Nepal. There should be global companies coming out of Nepal. And one other thing that I also say is the mindset of global. The other is the mindset of the passion itself. A lot of companies. Recently, I had a mentor. I talked to him, and he told me that a lot of entrepreneurs of Nepal do not have passion. They do it for the sake of doing it,
Yeah.
right? Might be they want some fancy title, or they just saw someone doing it. They do not do it for the sake of for the passion that they have. And if you compare it to other countries, that you said that Silicon Valley, you'll feel passion over there, not here. So that is the second thing. That also relates kind of to the mindset, but passion and if the mindset changes, then a lot of things change.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure, you're saying something.
There's a platform called Y Combinator.
Yeah.
Like thousands and millions of startups around the world apply to it.
Yeah.
However, Nepal had none of the organizations, startups from Nepal, has ever even made it to anywhere
Someone
To the
close.
Nepalese, yeah.
interviews. We made it to the interviews.
I think there is one startup with Nepalese founders.
Yes, but
Two, I
US
guess two.
citizens, yeah.
In
Two,
US,
yeah.
yeah. So there's a reason why, India, even from India, there's like 5-10
Yeah.
per every few years that they get an entry to, and from there the growth is exponential.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why, investors don't exactly look into why should we invest in a startup here in Nepal.
Yeah.
The ecosystem doesn't allow it.
And I think
The
you were
policy
sharing
doesn't favor
sharing
it.
the story about what happened at London Tech Week
Yeah.
on the kind of people that were approaching the Nepalese booth, the kind of conversation they were having at the
Yeah.
Nepalese booth that was so different from that.
Yeah. They do not know Nepal. They do not think
Yeah.
that we have developers, we have good companies in Nepal. It's also about marketing, right? So when there's one unicorn, I'm not judge a company based on the dollars that it earns,
Yeah.
but then, for example, if there's one unicorn from Nepal,
Yeah.
then might be the investors would actually look into, oh, there's a
Yeah.
unicorn. Why? How do they have unicorn,
Yeah.
right? So in India there was one unicorn, now they have 100 unicorns within a very short time. That's one. The other thing is we are not even marketing our ecosystem, right? So we are so much into our own company. We do not have this collective set of mindset to market the country. That's what and NASIT is trying to solve. So the question is, would you wait for the time when there will be a company that represents Nepal in the global stage, and then might be you'd get access to all the resource and everything, or would you go out there, try hard things? Might be the chances of failure would be bigger because in Nepal you have your own home ground, right?
Yeah,
So you have your people, you have you know the language, you know how to deal with the people, or you'll risk it all and go there. There are pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
So go there and try out something that you want to build it for the world. I'd actually think we need more of the people who want to risk it, and that would actually change how others think, right? So when for example, if there's one unicorn from Nepal, all the young people will look at him and say, "Okay, we're gonna be that."
Yeah.
That's what we can be.
Yeah.
So I think there will be few people who will actually do it very soon.
Any thoughts you have on that?
No, I think different entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs for a different reason. I think I like this idea of scratching your own itch. You you go and solve a problem that is bothering you, and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
completely up to the entrepreneurs what is bothering them, and I think it's a different joy when you end up solving the problem that is bothering you, hence creating a product or service that is also acting like a solution to other people, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's completely. I think a lot of self-reflection, a lot of soul searching, and identifying what you really want to solve. What are the things you find meaning in,
Yeah.
and I think that's the way forward.
Final question. What do you see yourself doing in 5 years? How does the day look like with all the AI adoption that is happening right now? So let's say, for example, we are in 2031 right now. How do you think the day looks like for you?
I see automated happy minds,
Automated.
where maybe office rooms are just for therapists and not for management people to run around, communicate, coordinate as much. Less
Would that office still
paperwork.
be in Nepal?
Also in Nepal.
Also in Nepal. Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Amazing. What do you think?
I think I see myself more into investing.
Investing,
Most something that I'm working currently is creating this diaspora fund,
Yeah.
where I'm trying to connect diaspora people with disposable income to invest in Nepalese startup.
Yeah.
So most probably investing and managing funds.
But how does a day look like? What
Day
what
looks
would
like
you been doing?
talking with a lot of entrepreneurs,
Okay.
doing the due diligence,
Yeah.
and yeah, hosting podcasts.
Okay. Talking to more people. I miss the day for you.
Maybe waking up with less stress and no schedule
Okay.
because things are automated. So I have more time to be free and lazy so I can turn on my creative mind.
Yeah. Okay. Nirdesh?
I think something like Shreeya said and something it's in between. I really want to be an investor.
Investor. Okay.
Not 5 years from now, might be 10 years. The timeline might be different, but I really love what people are doing and what I really love people solving problems, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of ways I connect to them and find out all these things. I think AI will actually make that easier for me. But the other thing is in daily life, like Shreya said, if a lot of things are automated, I'd be spending more time for myself, with my family, and might be learning and doing things that I never had time for. I'm a very bad singer. I really
Okay.
wanted to sing. I really want to learn
We're gonna
singing.
make you sing after this, you know that.
Maybe that could be a closer.
Yeah, I'll not put him on spot.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, thank you so much, guys. I think it was great.
The question to you:
Yeah.
what do you see yourself doing in 5 years?
So
in
I
post-AI
I
world?
was sharing before the podcast as well, right? Like recently, I was on a trek, and then the biggest realization that I had on that trek is that so I have this spreadsheet where I mark how many hours I'm giving to what kind of work, and then that sheet would have 11, 12 hours, 10 hours on each day scheduled. I'm trying very, very hard to make it to 5, 6, or even 4 for that matter, so that I can like free up more time. What I'm realizing more is that our brain, the time that we need to give it to for it to recoil and be at a best shape to really make critical decisions and then think creatively. I think that is becoming more and more important. I don't know what is the exact direction for that, but then that's been my realization right now. And so probably 5 years down the line, probably work a couple of hours a week, a couple of hours a day, and then just go to the gym, train, eat
Train
good
for
food,
Iron Man.
train. Yeah, and I think probably yes, train for Ironman. Let's see how that goes. But then yeah, I think a lot of I would save my mind from a lot of burnout energy. Yeah,
If I think the managing daily task is a very
yeah,
hard thing to do, right? So
Yeah.
if AI can do that,
yeah.
I'd be very happy.
Yeah, because like one thing I realized is that in our work we just need to be consistent enough, and that consistent does not mean busy.
Yeah.
So, and I think AI enables us to make that daily workflows where we can do things for a couple of hours a day, but still be very productive and very result oriented, as you mentioned, rather than being very busy. So that'll be my exploration from here moving forward. Also thinking of doing something around general intelligence. So there is general intelligence, there is artificial intelligence.
And they're super intelligent.
Yeah, so maybe hosting some retreats in Namche Bazaar where we have monks and AI researchers coming down and and exploring a lot of different kinds of stuff. So yeah. Any final thoughts that you might have after this entire conversation that we have had?
I think this was a good conversation. A lot of the times when people delve into mental health and have a conversation, it's usually AI versus, like, AI therapist versus human therapist. But such conversations opens a platform for people to understand that AI therapist is there to help a human therapist. It's not versus, but complementary.
Yeah.
So it was a good conversation.
Indeed.
For me, I think to end this from my side conversation, from my side, we always hype things that are new, right?
Yeah.
So, but we do not see internet disrupted everything. Right? And the cashless payment actually in Nepal disrupted everything.
Yeah.
This is just one more technology.
Yeah.
This is gonna be just one more tool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think everybody should learn to use this tool
Yeah.
if they want to stay relevant. Yeah, I think that one is my closing statement from my side.
Anup?
I think every one of us at this point of time really thinking about how do we integrate this, and I think conversation like this really makes you think hard. Are you doing enough
Yeah.
to integrate more of AI to your business?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think lovely conversation. Best of luck. I think it took you 6 years to actually do it.
Yeah.
I think you stay consistent and inspire, impact more people to leverage AI.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
I need some feedback as a host as well. How do you think I did today?
I think being guest is really difficult.
Yeah.
I would love to be more host, but you did a wonderful job.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, guys. It was wonderful to even set the tone for all the work that we want to do here. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.